All right. We are back. Welcome to the morning edition of Black Bear News. Please remember to like the video. Make sure that you are still subscribed. You can support this channel by Super Chat or PayPal. That's how this channel keeps going. This channel exists because of you. And welcome everybody into the chat. TCR, William Moy, how you doing? Gene, hello my fellow apes. I like that. We are all just really fancy apes, aren't we? Really fancy apes with a huge sense of self-importance. Gene, this is the one place where I won't have to hear the host say how wonderful Biden was last night. No, you will definitely not hear that because he was not wonderful. He was horrible. He was terrible. He was lying through his teeth. He didn't have anything. He said nothing. God, the worst thing that he said was, we're in a crisis and we can't have a revolution right now. Okay, Mr. Normalcy bias. Okay, Mr. Respectability politics. If you're not doing the right thing, you're not doing, and by the right thing, I mean what we tell you is the right thing. If you're not living within our ideals and our standards, then, we certainly can't listen to you. But what a wonderful time for a revolution, right? The actions in the face of the crisis need to be revolutionary on some level, right? They have to be dramatic. As Bernie Sanders says, the reaction to climate change has to be dramatic. A steady, tiny little incremental approach to climate change isn't going to help. And it's probably a little incremental, pump money into the central bank's incremental, course of action in the face of this crisis is not going to be helpful. Not in the long run. It's going to prop up business as we know it, or business as usual, which makes us surely susceptible to even more catastrophe, right? So to answer your question, or to reply to your comment, yes, indeed, Gene, you will not hear how Biden, the liar, Joe Corn Pop Biden was not good on any level last night. Deacon, Raza, Human. Raza says, thankfully I have enough supplies for the rest of my life if I die next week. I think a lot of people are in that. Yeah, so I went to the store this morning. I braved the line at the store to get a few things. My goal right now, I mean, I have a few things kind of stocked up here and there. A few emergency type supplies, but mainly it's like if I have enough for the next 2-3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks, I think that's probably fine. And the store, it's not like the stores are going to shut down. If they do shut down, then everybody is in a big world of hurt. We're not there yet, and we probably won't be there anytime soon. I doubt, but we'll see. Deacon says, martial law, baby. Maybe. We're not there yet. And if we do go that route, if the stores shut down, if there's martial law, if nobody can be on the streets, nobody can be on the streets, by penalty of imprisonment or, shooting or whatever. Like, if we reach that point, I don't know, it might be good to have maybe another month or two of supplies. I don't know. Maybe. Sure. But at some point, it's going to be all bad for everybody. Muddy Water, love your handle. Watch Dr. Francis Boyle on YouTube. I enjoy Dr. Francis Boyle. No representation. Incremental is what we do best in politics. Zoxalix, game over, man. Game over. Okay, Zoxalix is clearly in the camp of we're all, circling down the drain, and this is it. Everybody say goodbye. Kiss your loved ones. Natural Progressive, hello. Natural Progressive says, I am good and all prepared. Good to hear. Yeah, we've got stuff, we're cool for a couple weeks. I really don't see the stores closing down, in the next week or two. It's going to be possible to go back out again and get some more stuff. You know, that being said, yeah, take precaution. Prep where you can. Prep well. Basil, how you doing? I think probably the worst thing that we might be seeing is that if the economy absolutely just dries up, it shrivels up, which is certainly a likelihood, and then we start seeing supply chains being cut down, or they start closing down borders, supply chains start falling apart. Well, then we got ourselves a problem. And then at some point it's survival of the fittest, right? And I laugh to keep from shuddering. The dude, I'm homesick too, hoping it's psychosomatic, but I called in sick anyways because I can. There you go. Rosa Remen says, we don't need martial law, we need martial love. Ooh. Indeed. Bring out your dead, says Basil Peterson. Bring out your dead. Yeah, do what you can. I'm not downplaying the severity of the situation. Do what you can. Do what you can while the stores are open. At the same time, likelihood is that in the next 3 or 4 weeks, we'll probably see, some kind of plateauing. Right. There's, there might be the other side to this. 4 weeks, 8 weeks, is also a possibility too. So let's start with that. So the CDC recommended that there be no large gatherings for the next 8 weeks. So we are looking for, at least for a lot of things, a shutdown to continue through the next 2 months. Unless they change their minds, unless they drop it, unless things kind of ease up, unless things take a turn for the better, and then they'll probably be like, okay, everybody come out. Everybody's good. Rudel Zavedno says martial law is already implemented in Lombardy and parts of Spain. Fines up to 5K euro for walking outside. Jesus Christ. Jeez. Deacon, I wouldn't totally lose it until the Dow drops below 15K, and that's coming, right? Gene says here in Costa Rica we will have about 425,000 needing hospital care, and we have about 400 intensive care. 425,000? Really? That sounds like a lot of people. I mean, there's only 3,000 cases in the entire U.S. I don't see how you need 425,000 people needing hospital care. I don't even think there were that many people in China that needed hospital care. It seems like a big number, Gene. Muddy Water says they made it. They know what it is. They know exactly what it does. 6-foot transmission. Animals are surrogates. No immunity. So why are they lying? They are intentionally spreading. I don't know, man. That's a distinct possibility coming in from the the corner that somebody is in control of this, which I'm not going to put it out of the realm of possibility on any level. Anyway, so yeah, I'm going to be doing a couple of these broadcasts a day, and as I was preparing for this morning, I was like, oh, am I going to have enough to talk about? Immediately, I had more than enough to talk about for a couple videos today. So there's that. No worry in that. You're right. The panic buying is nuts. Natural progressive. I agree. Well, there's two routes that are going to happen. There's, everybody's going to be in quarantine for a couple of weeks. We're going to kind of muddle through this. And after 2, 3, 4 weeks, we're going to see how exponential the growth of new cases is. And, within 2 or 3 weeks, we'll understand whether it's going to be, ramp up to doom or everything kind of slowly returning to normal. And that's, those are our two options right now. Zoxalix says stock up, it can't hurt. No, yeah, it can't hurt at all. I agree. Buy stuff you will use. Yeah. I mean, I'm stocking, I'm buying like double what I usually do. I'm just like, okay, if I got a couple stuff, I buy for the week, I guess. And then, so now I'm buying for a couple weeks or maybe 3 or 4 weeks, whatever. Just a few more things. It doesn't have to be hoarding levels. So let's go into some news. So I think I mentioned this last night, but LA Mayor Eric Garcetti orders closure of all restaurants and bars. So Garcetti kind of doubling down on Gavin Newsom's proclamation that bars and restaurants be closed. So they're closing restaurants. So they're not even allowing restaurants to be open except for takeout and delivery. Most restaurants have closed because of low patronage. New York City has also done the same. That takes effect tomorrow morning, Tuesday at 9 a.m. Just in time for St. Patty's Day. They're like, you fools better keep your ass at home. DC, all nightclubs were shuttered. Bar seating has been banned at restaurants. Bar seating has been banned. AOC begged diners to stop crowding bars, restaurants, and public spaces right now. So interestingly, I didn't know this. South Korea, which has seen the 4th largest number of cases at just over 8,000, as of March 15, hasn't resorted to a lockdown, but has instead focused on widespread testing. So South Korea did not lock down their country. They just tested everybody. Though many businesses are nonetheless closed. The complete shutdown of restaurants and bars in the nation's 3 largest cities, New York, Los Angeles, and Chicago, will have a dramatic effect on life in urban centers. Do you think so? From the loss of income for restaurant and bar workers to the likely permanent closure of many establishments. Ooh. And that is a death nail, definitely. Permanent closure of many establishments. This is the long-term implications for the economy are really the thing that we have to worry about, I personally believe. Let's get into the story from the BBC. This is interesting. I'm going to read a lot of this. So, the climate doomers preparing for society to fall apart. That's us. March 16th, 2020. This is from Void. Void linked this in the comments. Thank you. An article by a British professor that predicts the imminent collapse of society as a result of climate change has been downloaded over 500,000 times. Many mainstream climate scientists totally reject his claims. Of course they do. But his fellow followers are already preparing for the worst. As the last night of the late winter sunset illuminates her suburban back garden, Rachel Ingrams is looking at the sky and pondering how long we have left. Her hands shielded from the gusts of February air by a well-worn pair of gardening gloves, Rachel carefully places tree spinach and scarlet pimpernel seeds into brown plastic pots. Over the past year, Rachel, 45, has invested in a greenhouse and 4 bright blue water butts. Started building a raised vegetable patch out of planks of wood. It's all part of an effort to rewild her garden and become as close to self-sufficient as she can. Take heed, fellow doomers. This is how you really survive long term through these kinds of things. While society continues to function, within the next 5 to 10 years, she says, climate change is going to cause it to fall apart. I don't see things lasting any longer than that. I wonder who else has been spreading this message of climate doom. Could it be some guy that we all know? They don't even... Are they even going to mention his name in this article? Probably not. So every evening after picking up her children from school and returning to their former council house, she spends about 2 hours working outside. I find the more I do it, the less anxious I am, she says. It's better than just sitting in the living room, looking at the news and thinking, oh God, climate change is happening. What do we do? Rachel is unsure about how much to tell her 3 daughters. I don't say to them that in 5 years we won't be here, she tells me, but they do accept that food will be difficult to find. Every 6 weeks, she takes her 2 youngest daughters on the 450-mile round trip from their home in Sheffield to the organic farm in South Wales. That is a long trip. That's ridiculous. Where they learn how to forage for food. It's vital for them to learn skills we'll be able to use in the natural world when all our systems have broken down. I guess that's wise. But hopefully there will be food to forage. Imagine 8 billion people trying to forage food on the planet. There won't be much food left for anyone to forage. I don't think what they're learning in school is the right stuff anymore, given what we're facing. They need to be learning permaculture, self-sufficient agriculture, and other stuff, ancient stuff that we've forgotten how to do. We just go to Tesco. She's not at all confident her efforts will make much difference in the long run. I don't think we can save the human race, she says. But hopefully we can leave the planet with some organic life. Around a year ago, a video of a talk by a British professor called Jem Bendell appeared on Rachel's Twitter feed. Also, no mention of Extinction Rebellion in this article, or Roger Hallam, or any of those, what will we call them? I don't know. Terrorists is what they're being named, what they're being called. Around a year ago, a video, we read that. As soon as I saw it, everything seemed to make sense in a terrifying way, Rachel says. It felt like a bolt from the blue. We are all going to die. I felt it in my bones that we are at the beginning of the end. Bendell, a professor in sustainable leadership at the University of Cumbria, is the author of an academic article, Deep Adaptation, a map for navigating climate tragedy. We are all familiar with this, which has become the closest thing to a manifesto for a generation of self-described climate doomers. The doomosphere. Welcome to the doomosphere. In it, he argues that it is too late for us to avoid the inevitability of societal collapse caused by climate change. Instead, we are facing a near-term breakdown of civilization, near-term meaning within about a decade. The paper was rejected for publication by a peer-reviewed journal whose reviewer said that its language was not appropriate for an academic article. Okie dokie. It is certainly unconventional with its disturbing descriptions of what's to come. Again, respectability politics are going to kill us all. Normalcy bias is going to kill us all. Everybody being nice and lovely and, non-threatening to each other, that's going to kill the entire human race. We're going to nice ourselves to death. We're going to appropriate ourselves to death. Or appropriate, I don't know, whichever one. It is certainly unconventional with its disturbing descriptions of what's to come. You won't know whether to stay or go. You will fear being violently killed before starving to death, Bendell writes. After the journal's rejection in July 2018, Bendell self-published the 34-page article online. It soon went viral. It has now been downloaded over 500,000 times, translated into a dozen languages, and sparked a global movement with thousands of followers called Deep Adaptation, because Bendell calls on people to adapt their lifestyle to cope with the harsh conditions in his vision of the future. Bendell's stark predictions have been dismissed by prominent climate scientists. Guess who? Guess who the prominent climate scientist is? Professor Michael Mann, one of the world's most renowned, describes Bendel's paper as pseudoscientific nonsense. Because Dr. Mann is engaging in more respectability politics and more, being appropriate is, more important than, being non-threatening is more important than telling the truth. To me, the Bendel paper is a perfect storm of misguidedness and wrongheadedness. Mann says it is wrong on the science and its impacts. There is no credible evidence that we face inevitable near-term collapse. What's more, Mann claims Bendel's doomist framing is disabling and will lead us down the very same path of inaction as outright climate change denial. Fossil fuel interests love this framing. Do they? Oh, so there you go. There you go. Fossil fuel interests. That's like saying Russia loves Bernie's platform. Fossil fuel interests love this framing. Bullshit, Michael Mann. Bullshit. They do not love this framing. They love your framing. They love your framing because you enable them to continue while we do little things around the edges and, come on, guys. Let's recycle. Let's carpool. A poster child for the dangerous new strain of crypto denialism. Miles Allen, professor of geosystem science at the University of Oxford, is just as critical. Predictions of societal collapse in the next few years as a result of climate change seems very far-fetched, he tells me. This is at the level of science of the anti-vax campaign. Oh my God. Oh my God. Yeah. By the way, questioning what's in vaccines is not crazy. It's totally acceptable. So, whatever. So far, the systems responded to greenhouse gas emissions almost exactly as predicted. So to say it's about change and become much worse is speculation. This article sums up everything that's wrong with with people at the moment because, the corporate controlled elites and intelligence agencies are pushing out this message or this framing of all issues that, the way to counter apocalyptic, climate change scenarios is to call them conspiracy theorists or, on the level of anti-vax people, or, friends of the fossil fuel industry, right? Just absolute bullshit framing to delegitimize what people are, the reality around climate change. Is absolutely disgusting. So far, the systems responded to greenhouse gas emissions almost exactly as predicted. So to say it's about change and become much worse is speculation. Honestly, this kind of material is at the level, anyways, I read that. Allen agrees with Mann that the paper's pessimism is liable to make people feel powerless. Lots of people are using this kind of catastrophism to argue that there's no point in reducing emissions. Well, sure, some people are, or you could actually tell people the truth about global dimming or aerosol masking, the aerosol masking effect, and that there's a damned if we do, damned if we don't in reducing emissions. That would be, that would be a good start in order to get people to understand what the actual problem is before we can take effective action on the problem. Bendel rejects the scientist's claims and says people have been inspired by his paper to demand radical government measures to tackle climate change. Yeah, reject those scientists' claims. At least the pocket, the establishment pocket scientists. I hope Michael Mann gets to meet some more climate activists on the streets so he can meet the new breed of fearless people taking peaceful, direct action after being moved by uncompromising assessments of our situation, he says. Oh, they do actually talk about many of the leaders of Extinction Rebellion read my paper and quit their jobs to go full-time to try to reduce harm and save what we can. Others, climate scientists, they have more time for Bendel. With global emissions continuing to rise and no signs that the Paris targets will be respected, Jem Bendel has some justification in taking the strong position that it is already too late. And we better prepare to deal with the collapse of the globalized economic system, says Professor Will Steffen from Australia's Climate Change Council. Jem may, in fact, be ahead of the game in warning us about what we might need to prepare for. There's actually quite a few people who are ahead of the game, who have been ahead of the game. When scientists continue, Bernie Sanders ahead of the game. Bernie Sanders on a debate stage last night said, in fact, scientists are saying that it's happening much faster than ever predicted, right? Things are much worse than we could possibly imagine, and that's why we need, dramatic action on climate change. He adds that there is a credible risk that even a 2°C rise in global average temperatures above pre-industrial levels could initiate a tipping cascade, taking our climate system out of our control and onto the hothouse Earth state. I can't say that for sure that Jem Bendell is right, but we certainly can't rule it out. So there is a balanced, nuanced view of the situation that is much more in line with reality. In its bleak forecast and direct language, Bendell's paper has had an electrifying effect on many who read it. Almost 10,000 people who have joined a Positive Deep Adaptation Facebook group, and about 3,000 are members of an online forum. Here, the movement's followers exchange ideas about how they can adapt their lives, businesses, and communities in accordance with deep adaptation doctrine. We'll be safer if we move further north because it's colder. Okay. In the paper, Bendell proposes a deep adaptation agenda, a conceptual roadmap for how to cope with the economic, political, and environmental shocks he believes are coming our way. He urges people to think about the aspects of our current way of life we will be able to hold on to and those we will be able to let go of, referring to those two ideas as resilience and relinquishment. He also talks about a third R, restoration, which refers to old skills and habits that we will have to bring back. For some, such as Rachel, the fourth R, restoration means rewilding their gardens, their gardens and local neighborhoods, learning foraging skills, and imagining how to survive in a world without electricity. For others, it's about leaving the city or heavily populated areas of the country and heading for the hills. Lionel Kirbyshire, a 60-year-old former chemicals engineer, says he began getting deeply worried about the climate a few years ago. He read, among other things, some of the writings of Guy McPherson. Yes, so they actually talk about Guy McPherson. Thank you. I think they misspelled his name. A controversial American scientist unaffiliated to deep adaptation who predicts humans will be extinct by 2030. All right. Good on BBC for actually naming the names. I haven't heard Roger Hallam named yet, but they did say Extinction Rebellion. His head was soon boiling with all this information that no one wants to know. There was a moment about a year ago. Does it sound familiar, anybody? There was a moment about a year ago when it hit me and I thought, we're in big trouble. He says, when you look at the whole picture, it's terrifying. I think we've got 10 years, but we'll be lucky to make it. Ooh, this article goes on and on. Hold on. A few months after reading the deep adaptation paper, Lionel and his wife Jill decided to move north. They sold their house in densely populated Bedfordshire, and relocated to a 3-bedroom terraced house in the small town of Cooper, Fife. Sounds lovely. In the back of my mind, I think when the crunch comes, there'll be a lot of people in a small area and it's going to be mayhem. And we'll be safer if we move further north because it's colder. They expect their grown-up children will join them in the coming years. In the meantime, Lionel is investing in some growing boxes in order to create raised vegetable beds in his garden, a foraging manual, and water purification tablets. We're not stockpiling food, but as the years go on, I can't see us having much left. Another deep adaptation follower who didn't want his name to be published told me he was planning to relocate from the southeast to the Welsh countryside. The basic things we'll need will be food, water, and shelter. He says he plans to live off-grid, either joining an existing eco-community or going it alone with like-minded friends in a house clad with straw bales for insulation. Deep adaptation isn't a bunker mentality of doing it yourself. We want a mix of people with different skills, he says. But he also says he's been taking crossbow lessons because you never know. It seems like a pretty useful weapon to have around to protect ourselves. I'd hate the thought of I'd ever have to use it, but the thought of standing by and not being able to protect the ones I love is pretty horrifying. Jem Bendell says deep adaptation advocates nonviolence. Its online platforms ban members from discussing fascistic or violent approaches to the situation. Though it didn't appear in Bendell's first paper, he later added a fourth R, reconciliation, which is all about living in peace. And when I finally get through to him, after 2 months of unreturned emails and conversations with his colleagues and the deep adaptation core team, he puts a big emphasis on love. People are rising up in love in response to their despair and fear, he tells me. Deep adaptation seems to have reached people in all walks of life, at least in the West. heads of banks, UN agencies, European Commission divisions, political parties, religious leaders. His message, he says, is one of putting love and truth first. At present, the professor's followers often feel the truth they believe in is ignored and dismissed by the rest of society. Really. Lionel says that among people he meets, no one wants to talk about it. Really. He joined several online groups with names like Near Term, Human Extinction Support Group, and Collapse Chronicles. Collapse Chronicles! Hey! Hambone, making the big time, where he can share his despair. Sometimes I say that I'm feeling quite low, and someone will say they're feeling the same, he tells me. So you know you're not in it alone. Rachel tells me that she also sometimes feels isolated. Her attempts to get her neighbors to collaborate in a community compost heap have mostly fallen on deaf ears, so she turns to Deep Adaptation's online forums to find support. It's much easier when you have a group to face the tragedy unfolding before us. If I'm feeling anxious, hopeless, or full of grief, I can go on there and tell them how I'm feeling. There are 9,000 people all over the world, so you can post on there in the middle of the night and get support. I post ideas about my compost bin and get lots of messages back with people being encouraging. However, she thinks there will be a day when the electricity is cut off, so she's learning to recite poems by heart in case she finds herself alone with no internet or possessions. At least I'll have something to carry with me. Wow. So I don't know if that was necessarily a slam, although, you know, they had to bring on the heads, the talking heads, right? The establishment scientists to tell everybody that these people are crazy and they're harming people. Yeah, I'd actually say that was a pretty interesting expose, if not, you know, slightly biased in trying to make these people look like they're nuts. But, and by these people I mean we people. Interesting. Very interesting article. I'll link it below. Ring-tailed fox, OMF. Osama, what's up? Ooh, crikey. Ring-tailed fox. Banks in Canada are closed as of 45 minutes ago. You can still use ATMs to withdraw, but the tellers are going home. Caesars Windsor, formerly Casino Windsor, is closed as of 3 p.m. Okay, well, that's good. You can still get your money or do whatever. I imagine they're closing because, you know, whatever. They're trying to send people home. We are not appropriate at all. Basil, no. Let me see. Yes, Echoes of Not. Hambone and McPherson going mainstream. Or at least finding their way into a BBC article. So there you go. Guy said it might not assured, let me see, assumed 40% of the world's industry in China stopping, a number he didn't himself didn't agree with. But you know, take the lack of air travel globally, and the lack of industrial output now globally. You know, I'm sure we're facing some kind of loss of global dimming. Saab, I don't know how to say your name. BNH, good luck to everyone. Hope you can grow your own food. If not, hope you know how to forage. Just Saab, BNH also says you should all have a very bad feeling right now. Yeah, I think a lot of people have a bad feeling. Bad feeling is warranted, says Natural Progressive. Yeah, let's move on to Cuba. So the really interesting, well, let's not use the word interesting. We'll say ridiculous. The ridiculous thing about the debate last night was that they went into the whole goddamn Cuba thing again, with Bernie Sanders praising their literacy program, and them, you know, somehow turning that into he supports um, totalitarian regimes, that kill people because he praised something that they did. So this nonsense point of view, this ridiculous, kind of like extremely polarized, cone of whatever perspective that the establishment tries to put over people, right? Like you must denounce everything. Bernie brought up a lot of good points, saying like, look, China's not a great country as far as how it treats its people. It's a totalitarian regime. However, they did bring a lot of people out of poverty, and from a climate change perspective, we can really go into the minutia of all of that, but or whether that's a really good thing or not, or how that happened, if that was a really good thing or not. Obviously, on a climate change level, China was much better 50 years ago when everybody was riding bicycles and growing their own food. And now, they built a bunch of factories and moved everybody into the cities, and now everybody's breathing in shitty fucking air, and they're killing the planet. So, them bringing everybody out of poverty, is that really a good thing or not? From the business as usual establishment, this is how the world works perspective. Okay, that's a good thing. I understand climate change and the impact that humans are having on the environment point of view. That's a totally stupid and shitty thing. Like people are much better off, or the earth is better off when people are living off the land in poverty. So, whatever we want to describe poverty as, they might be perfectly happy living off the land, growing their own food, and living in poverty. The problem with living close to the land or living in synchronicity with the environment is that, the environment will kill you because that's what the environment does. And nobody gets out of here alive. Everybody dies. So, you will succumb to natural causes. You will succumb to natural forces. You will succumb to diseases. You will succumb to malnutrition. You will succumb to, if there's a drought, you will succumb to famine. You will succumb to life. It's called life, and life ends. And anyways, whatever. Doomhound, thank you. All animals live in poverty. Animals are super poor. We've got to do something about these animals and bring them out of poverty. We must lift them up. MF, make the world poor again. Indeed. Anyways, to get back to to go back through that convoluted explanation, to get back to the point about Bernie saying, you can go ahead and acknowledge that China has done some good things for its people or whatever, without, saying, well, we want to live under the Chinese system. We'd like everybody to live that way. No, that's, it's kind of the inverse of that is saying like everything the United States does is great and wonderful. And we live in the most wonderful country in the world, and there's plenty of people who just, vomit this kind of stuff out of their mouths. And you can't ever, criticize the U.S. You can't ever bring up the fact that maybe we're, killing people overseas, that we're bombing brown and black people relentlessly, or unendingly, or that we overthrow regimes, or that we stage coups, or that we put people in economic slavery, or that we destroy the earth, we destroy all habitat. We are doing horrible things as a nation. And if you ever say stuff like that, oh my God, what are you saying? Are you a lunatic? Are you a crazy person? Are you anti-American? How dare you not love this country and not and say anything bad about, this country or what it does or what the military does or what, what this government does, blah, blah, blah. It's all fucking bullshit. That entire frame of, that entire type of framing and that entire frame of mind or state of understanding the world is, again, for children. You are a child if you think that way. And there are so many grown-ass children walking around the earth right now um, that think that that's how the world works, or that's the acceptable way to see the world, or that's a commendable way to think about life or other people or how things work. Like you're absolutely like 8 years old. You just you know there are 8-year-olds that are actually smarter than that. Rosa Remen says, "Stop bombing me, Kevin." I'm trying. I'm trying to stop bombing you, man. Uh, Ringtailed Fox says, "Kevin, I told you the shit would happen yesterday, and I called it." You did call it, and there you go. Well, the banks are closed, but they're not. You can still get money. I don't think that's like a closure. Like we're not allowing you to get your cash. It's not like a bank closure. Like, okay, guys, we shut everything down. All the machines are shut down. Is that next? Could be. That's pretty frightening if it is next. Ecocentric Homestead says, "I live off $600 a month in a tiny village in Newfoundland. I am richer than anyone in the city." Sounds like good living. Rich Diana says, "The economic destruction will be followed by the extreme culling." Indeed. Deacon says, "The problem becomes when the money isn't worth anything anymore and then hyperinflation strikes." It's interesting, the whole UBI. Well, hold on. I'll come back to that. But my point about Bernie in Cuba is that here's this story out of Cuba, or out of the news. Cuba allows British cruise ship with passengers diagnosed with COVID-19 to dock on the island. So what happened was, the Cuban government has authorized a British cruise ship carrying 5 people with confirmed cases of COVID-19, the disease caused by coronavirus, to dock at a port in the island. The MS Bremer, which has been sailing in the Caribbean since the end of February, is also carrying 20 passengers and 20 crew members, including a physician who are suffering from flu-like symptoms. The company that owns the ship, Fred Olsen Cruise Line, said. The ship company said in a statement that no other Caribbean port would allow the ship to dock because the issue of the COVID-19 coronavirus is very sensitive. So listen, Cuba, opened its doors, opened its port to the ship that was turned away by every other island and every other nation. And Cuba said, "Come on in." Cuba also, let me see if I can find this, sent doctors to Italy. Where are we? Sorry, guys. Oh, here we go. Do we have it? Oh, I guess we don't have it. So Cuba sent doctors. I don't have the article right in front of me, but Cuba sent doctors to Italy to help fight coronavirus. So here they are being, good humanitarians. Here they are helping the world and other nations out, while Joe Biden and these ridiculous, news anchors or whatever they are, moderators, whatever you want to call them, talking heads, CIA plants, or whatever that you want, whatever the name is that you want to give to these people, they all talk about how you must talk about Cuba as if they're the most evil, terrible, horrible people that ever existed. Cuba is the most horrible nation that ever was. We absolutely repudiate everything that they do. And you can't ever say that they ever did anything good. They didn't teach their people to cultivate their own food. They didn't become completely self-sustainable as a country. They didn't become a model for countries trying to fight climate change all over the globe, right? If you want to meet your Paris Agreement commitments, you should probably look at Cuba and study how they live. And again, the whole American framing of it would be like, but they're all poor. They're all living in poverty. Their living conditions are not good. They all get free top-line medical care. They all get free education. They grow their own food. They're self-sustainable. as a country. They don't need things from other places except for probably oil. They probably import lots of oil, I'm sure. But if you don't use a lot of oil, then how much oil do you have to import? Anyways, so Cuba is showing up in a humanitarian sense for the globe, and showing, in the face of this bullshit framing that was happening on the debates last night, you know they are doing the right thing and helping to combat the coronavirus. So please shut up about Cuba being the worst possible country ever in the history of the world, or that's the only way you can talk about Cuba. Doomhound, socialism is bad. Close the libraries now. Indeed. Or, shut down your fire department. Shut down your police station. Because socialism is bad. Darren Atchison, Cuba has the best doctors in civilization. Indeed. Dow is down 9.88%. Yikes. Richard Monroe says, I went to the bathroom without dropping my phone in the toilet, so it's a good day. Congratulations, Richard. The dude says you can only get $400 at a time from an ATM around here at least. Also follows up with it's a good way to avoid a run on the banks. Yeah, sure. Indeed. The problem is when the ATMs themselves shut down. But yeah, with the way people are acting around food and supplies, the idea that people won't start acting that way around money, or haven't already started to act that way around money, I'm sure is, uppermost in the banking sector's mind, right? Basil Peterson, we've been saving $100 a week for the last 6 years under the mattress. Good on you, man. You are well prepared. Peter Parkin says, I would have sold all shares in January if I had any. I seen this dystopian movie in Wuhan, China. How did most people not see what was coming? Osama number 5 says, let's not romanticize wealth. Indeed. Valhalla, proud to be half Cuban. Viva Cuba. Doomhound says Cuba sends their doctors everywhere. Indeed, they do. They have a great education system, a great medical system, and there's no, this whole indoctrination of Americans is not helping Americans. God, it's just making everybody just stupid. Stupid Americans. Yeah. Thank you, Natural Progressive, for the super chat. I appreciate. Natural Progressive says, hugs all. Make sure you like. Zoxalix, I'm half cube. I come from half cube Earth. Okay. Richard Monroe, I went to a 249-person gathering, so I'm fine. I went to the store with a whole bunch of people standing in line very close to each other. This lady was talking about let's stay apart from each other, and she's standing right behind me. I was like, could you give me some space? I was trying to give people about 3 feet, around me. And this lady's right on my ass talking about let's all give each other a little distance. Okay. When is that going to start? Gene says, Kevin, I redid the math. Most conservative number is 100,000 needing intensive care. That's a hell of a lot of people, and it still sounds really high to me, but I hope I hope that's not true. I hope that doesn't end up being the actual reality of the case. Let's see, guys. I got a super chat here from Vaclav Kruzovensky. Thank you so much for the super chat. Thank you, brother. And I think I got another super chat in here somewhere. Maybe not. Maybe that was it. Raza Remen, an Icelandic woman married a Cuban and gave birth to ice cubes. That's pretty good. Pretty good. Y'all want to hear you want to hear a coronavirus joke? Maybe you already heard this one. So the World Health Organization said that dogs are not susceptible to the coronavirus. So if you have them in quarantine, you can let them out. And, you know, this is probably the first case of the who let the dogs out, or something like that. That's how it went. I think I messed that one up. I messed it up. Anyways, you guys got it, right? Donald McCarthy. Is it just me, or is the world full of egregious dumb fuckery? It's just you, man. It's just you. I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, I mean, you know, the dude, thank you. I appreciate you. Yeah, that's cool. I actually, you know, I probably would prefer that myself. The PayPal to the Google taking the money. We'll see. But thank you. I appreciate it. Boiled rope lamppost says the roof is on fire. Osama says the Dow is down. Negative 2,348. Minus 10.13. Yeah. Doomhound. Exactly. Dad jokes. All right, guys. I'm going to sign off for now, and I will be back probably tonight because I'm going to do a couple of these a day, I guess. And, you know, I'm going to try and just keep you guys abreast of what's going on, at least for the next week or two. I'm going to be cranking these videos out a few times a day. So we will gather again later, but thank you so much. The dude says they take 30% of super chats. Yeah, I think that is what they take, which is egregious. And PayPal is much, much less than that. So, Zoxalix, that's capitalism. So yeah, guys, if you want to support the channel, you can always do it through PayPal or, you know, whichever way you want to do it. Super chat, PayPal. It's all good. Thank you so much. I'm gonna see you. I'm gonna sign off now, and I will see you guys later on tonight. I don't know a time. We'll probably say around 6 p.m. my time, Pacific time. All right, peace out, guys. Enjoy your afternoon.